Okay kids, it's time for books. So call out to Mum or Dad and let's rock and read. Today I'll be reading you My Farm, and this is how it goes. My farm. When I was little, I lived on a farm by the sea. Through summer, autumn, winter and spring, we worked on the land together. Mum, Dad, Charlie, Kate, Jake and me. We rode our horses every day and loved them like friends. The year my old pony died, Charlie let me ride his horse while he used the motorbike. Tricky was alright, but I really missed Inky. In summer we checked the water troughs to make sure the thirsty cattle had enough to drink. Sometimes we drove the old jinker and stopped for a swim along the way. We shifted mobs of cattle to better pasture and sorted out some that were ready to sell. On market days, huge trucks backed up to the dusty stockyards. Dogs barked, bullocks bellowed, whips cracked, and we yelled, "Oi, oi, oi! Get up!" and hoo-ha! to drive the cattle up the ramp. One moonlit night, a truck arrived with some new cows. I went up to the yards with my father to unload them. Something spooked the cattle, and in a flash they raced down the road. I chased them on, Tricky, riding bareback in my pajamas, and finally brought them home. I felt like a real hero. Late in summer, bushfires sometimes broke out in the hills. The smoke cast an eerie yellow light over our farm. We kept a water tank on the truck in case one of the paddocks caught fire. The local show was always a big day for us. It took weeks to get ready. We washed the stud bulls and cows and taught them how to parade. We brushed our ponies until they shone and plaited their manes and tails. Dad taught Tricky to jump. Jake practiced his tricks on Bella and trained Sadie for the dog high jump. My best friend Maggie double-dinked with me and we won the quietest pony contest. Charlie took the room because Tricky was his horse. I really wished I had my own pony. Dad's bull was a grand champion that year, and Sadie came third in the dog high jump. In autumn the trees turn orange and red. We galloped through the fallen leaves spinning behind us. New cattle arrived from the snowy mountains, and Dad and Uncle Jack drove them down the beach to spend winter on the bush run. When the cows began to calve, we had to check them at least twice a day. Once I found an abandoned calf and carried him home on Tricky. Mum made a bed for the shivering baby in front of the stove, and I fed him warm milk from a bottle. He sucked my fingers with his raspy tongue. Sometimes a calf died, and he had to find a new baby for its mother. Dad bought an orphaned calf from our neighbour and dressed it in a jacket made from the dead calf's skin. The cow recognised the smell of her own calf and adopted the orphan. If a cow needed help to give birth, we'd drive her slowly to the yards. Mum delivered the calf, just like a doctor delivering a baby. I was the assistant, patting the cow and soothing her with my voice. Sometimes I felt frightened, but it was always thrilling to see the tiny newborn calf. After the first autumn rains, mushrooms popped up in the paddocks. We would trudge for miles with knives and buckets, searching for a whopper or a perfect fairy ring. We drove the cattle to the yards again to be dipped and drenched. The mud was as sticky as glue. Once Kate got so stuck, she came right out of her boots. We didn't need to buy much meat from the butcher because we had our own. None of us liked to be around when Dad killed a sheep, but we all loved to help with the cutting up. We punched off the skin and investigated the insides. The dogs and cats waited for tidbits. On frosty mornings, the mist crept into valleys, and I'd pretend we lived on Norwegian fjord. When rainstorms flooded the flat country, Jake and I Sorry, I think it's I pretend we lived in a Norwegian fjord. When rainstorms flooded the flat country, Jack and I loved racing through the water. I always got splattered with mud because Tricky was so slow. I thought about the quicksilver pony I'd like to have. By the time we reached home, we had such cold hands, Mum had to unbuckle our bridles. We fed out hay in the cold winter mornings when the paddocks were bare. The cattle ran after the truck, bellowing for food. If the grass was very slippery, we held on to baling twine and wood escape behind the truck. We plaited the used twine to long skipping ropes. We plaited. Even in winter, we all had jobs to do. Jake fed the dogs every day. Kate milked the house's cow. We called her Bambi because she was so gentle. I fed Bambi's calf and looked after the chicks. And Charlie looked after the baby llama Dad had rescued from the side of the road. He was tiny and hairless and lived in a woolen beanie beside the stove. Mum found some ducks' eggs and we kept them warm in an electric frying pan until they hatched. The ducklings thought Mum was their mother. One of my favourite times was when we had a pioneer settlement down at my creek. Bambi came with us and made a yard for her and the ponies. We built a hut and dammed the creek, hoping to flood the road so we wouldn't have to go to school the next day. In springtime, the ground dried out and we were allowed to ride on the lawn again. Our best trick was galloping under the clothesline and grabbing onto it like cowboys. Bella was so quiet we could dress her up. One day, Jake rode into her kitchen and she left tiny hoof prints on the lino. Maggie and I want to be famous. We painted clay stripes on the old black horse so people would think it was a rare type of zebra. When we went on tadpoling fishing expeditions. The cats, dogs, and our pet sheep all tagged along. In September, it was time to bring the cattle home from the bush run. That year, Jake and I were finally old enough to go along. It took a day to ride out a muster and a day to drive them home along the beach. We splashed through the shallows and jumped the waves. I decided to be a drover when I grew up. The sweet spring grass was cut into hay and stored in the sheds to be used next winter. Mum gave us an afternoon tea to take down to the hay carters. We'd race home across the mound grass and Kate's pony possum always took off. My brother came and went, but I didn't get the pony I'd been hoping for. Sorry. My birthday came and went, but I didn't get the pony I'd been hoping for. After a day's work, we cooled under the sprinkler or swam our ponies in the dam. Sometimes we went to the beach and ate our dinner near the soft purple sea. Charlie was always a boss of our games. He could hypnotise chooks and sometimes had a whole lot of them with their feet in the air. We had to watch this performance. We had to pay to watch this performance. My payment was promising to barrack for Collingwood. Charlie's dog Sadie had pups in a hollow log behind the shed. Our cousins always came for Christmas and we loved having such a gang. We played crazy, complicated games like tightrope walking, snail races, cat and trousers contests, building cubbies and Olympic games. When I woke that Christmas, there were no presents at the foot of my bed. I searched my pillowcase, but all I found was a slip of paper with the words, "Look in the orchard." There, under the apple tree, was a Palomino pony. My own pony. And that was my farm. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye!